Honestly, a lot of adversity, a lot of character, a lot of growth. I think what's our team overcome as a group during the entire season will carry on for a long time for us. The lesson learned from young player, our start of the season, the way we bounce back, the way we found a way to be a competitive team every night from December to end of March in a really good league. I think that says a lot about the character of our team. If we go individually, we have a lot of players who had either breakout years or extreme learning season. And we had unbelievable leadership from older player, from guys like Ladder, Louis Eriksson, Strawman, Roussel, Beagle, and others who were unbelievable. Yesterday I talked to the player after the game, and I talked what Ladder, Louis, and Biggs achieved this year. They're unbelievable model and example for our entire organization. Andrew Ladd 4 years ago had 920 game played. I don't know if everybody understands how tough it is to play in that league and how demanding it is on the body and on every day the mental toll. And to be resilient and stay with it for 4 years, going in the minor, going in the taxi squad, all of it, and staying with it for that long when you've been that successful, one Stanley Cup and et cetera, and to succeed to play your 1,000 game, I think that is an unbelievable example for our entire team, entire organization. And the same thing can be said for Louis Eriksson, who stayed with it and battled for years to come back at playing in the regular in the NHL. When you've been that successful, it's something tremendous for me. And Jay Beagle every day show up, had energy, was a perfect example. And last night he was he could have played injured, maybe be at 60%, and he called me to say, you know what, I think if I play, I take the spot of a young guy who will have a chance to prove himself in the NHL. So for him, it was a chance to play in front of his kid and everything. So having those kind of character guys in your room and looking at our young guys looking at that, it showed what kind of room we had and why we had such a tight brotherhood and why we were able to bounce back at the end of the season when we had a really tough stretch early in April and finish the season the way we did. And we were able to bounce back all year when we had adversity. That's why. That's the reason why I'm so proud of that group.
You mentioned breakout seasons. I wanted to ask you about 3 players in particular, Keller, Schmaltz, Krause. Why do you think they were able to take it to such a higher level this season?
I think a lot of those guys are really competitive. If you think at Cal's, his competitiveness is legendary. He's extremely competitive, extremely driven, extremely demanding to himself, and he arrived in the season. And what he needed is to be trusted. He needed the opportunity to prove himself, and he earned everything he had. And I think he proved to everybody, but he proved to himself as well. He knew, but now he proved it. He always believed he could do that. He told me last summer when I had dinner with him, and he just proved what he told me he will do. And when you talk about Crosser arrived at the camp, he wanted an opportunity, and he earned it. He was a force out there all season long, on and off the ice. What a leader, what an example for our player. And when you talk about Schmaltz was a season in two segments, before his injury and after. And I think when he had his injury, he had time to train, and he arrived after his injury. He was in the best shape he's been, and with way less pressure on his shoulder. He put less pressure in. He started to play better by then. And I think just before, somewhere in January, he had a little dip, and from there he really took kind of the bull by the horn and say, okay, that's not who I will be, and he really took off from there, and from there it was a force. And even at the end, when Kels got hurt, it was tough for him because he did not have the same player to play with, and he could have crumbled and let it go. And instead of that, he really pushed back and stayed productive and scored big goal for us and been a really good player both sides of the puck, offensively and defensively. So he took a huge step.
How about you as a first-year coach? What did you learn? And as you look back on it, maybe you're too close to it right now, but your growth.
So many things. It's tough to put the finger on one thing. I take a lot of pride of trying to get better all the time and being my biggest critic all the time. And I ask a lot of questions about what stuff I can do better in every aspect. And so there's a major point. I don't know if there's a major point. There's 1,000 points. Which one is the most important? It's a good question, but it goes from load management to pace of the practice to special team work to a lot of different stuff I want to do differently. I want to do better. Communication with players. I think I'm a coach who communicates a lot with the player, but can always be better. There's some specific situations, so there's a lot I can be better.
Was there one thing specifically on the ice where you just realized, especially when you opened up the way you did, this isn't working, I need to adjust?
I think there's always something you need to adjust versus the team you have. There's always depends about which team, which type of player you have. In our side, I think it took a really long time for our neutral zone play to get better. And what I will say is the pace we play offensively, we were more predictable at the end of the season, and that's something we'll carry on the way we play on our breakout, the way we play on our neutral zone forecheck, neutral zone regroup. We had a way more pace, and we were way faster, and that's something we'll carry on. I think at the beginning of the season, we were a little bit trying to have the control all the time, and we were not as fast, we're not as quick. I think we got better at the end of the season, and it's something we'll carry on next year.
Bear, how do you feel about where the guys that we talked to were mentioning this, but where do you feel that the culture that you're trying to build is right now?
I think we made a tremendous step this year. We'll never know if it could have been better, or I don't know, but I know we made a huge step. And talking to the player today individually, and they talk about how the culture improved and how they feel good in the environment and all of it. It's important because you can be extremely demanding in terms of work ethic, but that has to be a healthy environment. You cannot drag your feet at the ring every day and say, okay, here we go, I'm going to work hard, but it's boring like hell. You need to make that fun, you need to make that entertaining, and you need to make that exciting to push yourself and push your teammate and all of it. And that we achieved that, and that is something, it's not a small achievement when you're not winning 50 games a year, when you're not winning on the regular base, to keep that enthusiasm and that energy every day. I think that was a huge achievement by the boys.
Barry, you talked about Kells and Schmaltz and lost in answering the bell. Anybody who you challenged this season that surprised you, that maybe you didn't expect to step up?
I will say Boydie is probably a name I have in mind. Veg is another one. Ghost, I think. Ghost, I knew he could be really good offensively, but I did not know how competitive he was and how good he could be. We had guys like Mayo, guys like O'Brien, who, they really make their niche in the NHL and they establish themselves. You have guys like Antoine Roussel, who had a slow start, finished really strong, and he was a solid player for us down the stretch. And from, I will say, December on, he He was a really good energy player. If you look just the game last night, you look at guys like Boko and OB and Roos, they drag us in the fight. We didn't have a lot of fight at the beginning. We were not in our A game, the tough schedule and all of it, and we just didn't, even me as a coach was behind the bench, and that was not the same pop than other game, and those guys drag us in the fight. They were so intense, so aggressive, and they just drag us in the fight, and then everybody feed off them, and we end up winning the game. So those guys are so important for the team.
Andre, how about a player like Barrett Hayton?
Oh yeah, good call,
He
Bob.
showed so much confidence and supported so much all year long, and he
Yeah.
really seemed to respond.
Yeah.
Talk about his development, and now he's at age 21 turning into a really good two-way NHL center.
Yeah, that's a really good call, Bob. He might be the player who had the most growth this year. Maybe it doesn't show on the stats sheet, but if you look where he was when he arrived at camp, he really become an extremely competitive player every day. Every day he's super competitive. He's way stronger in his battle. He's physical in his battle. He's really good defensively. I was chirping him earlier and was saying, you will have tell me when I coached you 2-3 years ago that we're junior, you will become that good defensively. I will have never believed it. And he was, you know, he made his niche in the first half of the season by being our best defensive center. That's last summer. I will have never believed that. Not a chance. And then he got his injury, and we challenged him to improve his separation speed, decrease his weight. Even he was a muscular guy, but we just thought with whatever, if you're 210 pounds, even if it's 210 pounds of muscle, you still have to carry 210 pounds. So we challenge him to reduce his muscle mass, to be a little bit lighter, to help his speed and kind of distribute his weight differently in his body to help his speed. That's not a small ask. And he did it. That is show his commitment. Came back, better separation speed, made more play, had a better matchup, yes, but still he started to produce. And at the end of the season, he went back at a tougher matchup, play with good player, and he produced again. So the growth on Barrett was huge this year.
That?
You good?
We're all set.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, talked about this last night, but put a bow on this season. What are your main takeaways
Well,
from this season?
It's an interesting season when you go through the rebuild. There were so many ups and downs. You know, we came into the season and I think we lost 11 straight, and that was interesting to go through. And I know coaches did a quick rebuild, and you know, it took them a little bit of time to get adjusted to the NHL. And I think on the other end of that, it took a little bit of time to figure out what we had. You know, with some of the older players that hadn't played, and then some of the younger guys coming in. So it was truly an interesting start. I thought we settled in and kind of found our rhythm and identity as a team, and kind of moved forward with a hard-working team that kind of pounded you a little bit. And then I think halfway through we kind of found the Kellers of the world, and they kind of evolved in Smoltz. So there was a lot of good. And the J.J. Mosers kind of came up, and Veggie kind of took hold, and there was a lot of really positive things. And we kind of, I think after the deadline, we moved a few bodies out and kind of went to a little bit of a lull there. And then at the end, we kind of really responded, coming down the stretch with some big wins and some big comebacks. And I think that kind of showed what we're all about. And kind of moving through this rebuild, I thought that it was a positive year.
How do you evaluate the coaching staff in a season like this?
Well, I think you look at the effort that our team provided every single night and how hard they fought. I think that's how you evaluate them. That's not an easy year to go through, and there's a lot of times where we traded a lot of players and we made a lot of moves, and that team didn't give up. And so I think our culture changed with this coaching staff. I think our guys fought, and I think that if you look at it, it's a great question by you, because look at Smoltz's numbers, look at Krause's numbers, look at all those guys. Everybody had good years. Phil Kessel had over 50 points. Everybody kind of achieved on a team that was, just kind of thrown together in the process of a rebuild. So I think you evaluate the coaches on, the type of year that some of our star players had, and also the effort that was given by the team every night.
Bill, how much of the current roster do you realistically think will be back when training camp opens?
That's a good question. I think the core will be back. The Kellers and Smoltzes and the Barrett Haydens and the Mosers and the Veg Malkos, and they're going to come back, but there's going to be probably a lot of new faces. Probably half of the team will change, and that's part of the process that we go through at this point.
Sure. When you look at the future and the immediate going into the new building,
Yeah.
a little bit higher ticket prices, is it hard to maintain where you're going and building for the future over the next 3 years as you're trying to sell the product?
No, I think there's some good building blocks. Like if you think about it, we get rid of Kemper and Hill, in trades, and we're able to get Veg Malka through the door, and he's a good piece for us to move forward. And then J.J. Mosers come up from the minors along with Kolnichuk and Soda, and you can kind of see how well those guys played. And then up front, the Barrett Haydens of the world and the Jack McBains have started to evolve and settle in, and you can kind of see how our team's starting to get that identity that we want. So there's a lot of positives, and there's a lot of things to build around. And it's even talking about Nick Schmaltz's game and how much that kind of evolved, and then Boyd was in the middle and Kells on the other side. It was a great first line, and those are the type of pieces and key core pieces that we need to move forward into the building, into the next era of where we're going.
Bill, when fans, see that the team didn't get the worst record and therefore the most catches at the draft, is there something to be said, or is there something that maybe they don't understand about maybe the bigger picture here and seeing the team play with pride and other things, other factors?
Well, our biggest thing behind the scenes when you go through a rebuild, it can be ugly. There's, what people don't see behind the scenes is the fact of how much, the players care, the coaches care, and how much that when you go through that, the negative, that can happen from the losing wears on people. And so what we've preached around here is the process. How do we run a better practice? How do we make sure the food's better? How do we make sure that we're moving to becoming a championship organization one step closer every day? So when we dig into the process, and our players, obviously dig into the process, and they follow that and they achieve, and we win a few extra games, you can't fault the organization or the guys. That's part of what we're going through, and that's going to pay off in the long run. I'm also a big believer things happen for a reason, and that's just the way it is.
Bill, was there anybody that you brought in this offseason that surprised you?
I thought Gus, Shane, he had a great season back there. I thought he really, kind of, from the moment he came in, approached the season with energy and effort and bought into what the coaching staff, and he really produced offense for us. So he was really somebody that jumped up. And two of the guys that were here, we put a lot of pressure in the offseason with Schmaltzy and Keller, and said, hey, listen, we expect more from you. And those guys responded along with Kraus. So there's a lot of positives, some guys having some really big years. And even though we were going through what we went through, there's a lot of positive around of this club.
Some of your guys said last night that just projecting ahead in a 5,000-seat building, you could make it a very difficult place for opponents to come in and play.
Yeah, and I think we tried to do that. We tried to, when I first came in, I talked about being a cactus, right? Nobody hugs a cactus, and I think we've started to evolve into that. And you can see the Liam O'Briens and Bocos and the Jack McBains and just how hard they play. And I think we've kind of evolved our organization. There's still more to do in that regard, but we're at least to the point where we're giving our skilled guys some room out there. They're not getting beat up, and that was important for us to kind of get established, and I think we did that.
Have you outlined priorities, players who you want to re-sign, guys you want to have those conversations with right away?
Well, I have a priority list that sits in my desk, and the number one, all the way from 1 to 10, it says the draft, the draft, the draft, the draft. So we're going to focus in on that right now and let everybody lie for a bit. There'll be a few odds and ends contracts to get to look at, but I mean, that's, I've always said this from my first press conference, you stack one good player on the next good player on the next good player, and soon enough you're going to have a good team, and we're going to try and do that through the draft.
And I think jumping off of what Craig was asking about the coaching staff, how did you feel about the way your head coach evolved? I know he made some changes and adjustments as the season went on when things weren't working.
Yeah, it's a credit to him, because I think, when you get off to the start that we went, I think we 0-11. I mean, that's a tough it's tough to get over that. And I think what I loved about our coaching staff is that they kept making small changes and adjustments as they're going through that process. They weren't stuck on, okay, this is the exact way we have to play. They kind of evolved and made those small changes as they move forward. And I think that was the key. I think our players respected them for that, and they showed that, okay, they're not stubborn coaches. You know, they're going to evolve, and you know, and let's all work together to work this thing out. And they did a great job in that regard.